Right Here by J.B. Toner. The whole thing was becoming absurd. Granted that the Zeugma needed allies, but the sheer bloody-minded perversity of these people. The firefolk had been twinkling at them. For ages their chaperone rose daily and split the rain light into every color they could see. And they kept focusing on the alphabet, explaining how the messages were sent instead of hearing what they said, for pity's sake. Once again, they fired her out a laser. Once again she jumped dutifully through the double slit, pantomiming her message for the 10,000th time. We're right here, you idiots. Try listening. As you observe, said the professor, this demonstrates the consistent inconsistency of quantum mechanics, hence the random and chaotic nature of the cosmos at large. Professor? A diffident voice. Couldn't it just as easily demonstrate volition? Even intelligence? What? You mean that a given photon might have the ability to choose whether to manifest as a wave or a particle? He gave an avuncular chuckle. Forgive me, my dear, but that's sheer silliness. Even we don't have true volition, you know. Only the illusion thereof. These people didn't have the leisure for such tripe. Technically, they'd been conquered once already, though, luckily for them, the invaders had failed to realize that they moved in opposite temporal directions. Now Earth's paleontologists whiled away the hours studying the slow gestating larval forms of their pupative oppressors, while the zechinoids explosively pupated in the tag end of the Cretaceous period, causing the very climate change that their subjects would later assume had wiped them out, and spent millions of years roaming about the place looking for someone to oppress. Shedding the dividends now. Well, couldn't other races be under the same illusion? Shedding in turn, with some politeness. Miss Baroque, there are roughly 4 sextillion photons in the observable universe. If your notion were even remotely tenable, it would become a sort of microcosm of Fermi's paradox. With so much sentient life around us, why has none of it made contact? Ugh, there it was. Perhaps the most baffling, imbecilic concentration of incoherencies yet produced by this frustratingly promising, yet endlessly obtuse planet. How could the same species, and even the same individuals within it, be clever enough to split the bloody atom, and stupid enough to think every possible form of consciousness must communicate via radio waves? The young student flung off diffidence and politeness alike. Think about how fast a photon moves. A second to us must feel like a century to them. If they were trying to reach us, it would be unbelievably difficult to fit a message into our time frame. Spot on. The firefolk, of course, had the opposite problem, as they interacted with space-time over a sweep of aeons, in which human history to date was but the briefest of flickers, but they and the Zeugma had long since learned to speak together in Thule, the dimension of pure will, where humans almost showed the rare potential to join them. Another voice, this one charged with scoff. That's not why we don't hear from aliens. It's because of the dark forest. Every civilization wants to survive in the universe with finite resources. So each one has to assume all the others are hostile. Any species that breaks radio silence gets destroyed. Yeesh. This was somehow even dumber. The first student retorted. Doesn't that basically assume that aliens are just dudes in rubber costumes? How do we know what a true extraterrestrial might need or want, if anything? You might as well think every possible form of consciousness must communicate via radio waves. Wait, is she hearing me? All right, class. While ungrounded conjecture is more entertaining and incidentally less challenging than actual research, this is not Science Fiction 101. Let us return to the facts. As the double-slit experiment proves, our knowledge of quantum mechanics contains fundamental contradictions, which, and doesn't that make it nonsensical to throw a blanket assumption over the whole question of volition? What if... That's it, come on, Rivka. Miss Brooke. What if will is the missing piece? What if will itself is the missing piece? Yes. She'd finally gotten through to someone. And none too damned soon either. Silep, the radical mental discipline that enabled zoomatic interaction with the human time frame, took its toll, and she needed to shift back to Thule to recharge. Happily, a nice long sabbatical for her would be of no perceptible duration to the hominids in the room, and she'd be back, for Rivka Baruch's obstreperous classmate was right about one thing. There was a hostile intelligence out there, and its weapon was universal entropy. They called it the anti-will. In the end, nothing would survive it. All would perish with a whimper. Unless every Thule-capable race, Earth's included, came together, unless they lit up this dark forest, like that great primeval bang. Hello and welcome to Utopia Science Fiction, the podcast. We are here today with our design editor, Jonathan S., and a special guest star, our assistant fiction editor, Jess Nickelsen. So, hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
And today we're going to be talking about comp titles. And Jonathan, why don't you start us off? Tell us a little bit about comp titles.
So, it's short for composite titles, and it's basically a quick way to generate or come up with story ideas or a way to pitch ideas to someone else. It can sometimes be called an elevator pitch, because if you think about how long an elevator ride is, you have that long to convince like a producer that your idea is going to make money for them.
It reminds me of, people describing a pitch or a story as a high concept. I guess it's a similar, just in that a comp title often does communicate the story sort of quite clearly. You can sort of straight away, what the story is about.
Mm-hmm. It's a good way of clarifying your own ideas of what the story is about. If you can learn to summarize it in such a short number, it gives you a better idea of what the story is.
Mm.
Which can also help in editing if you need to do a second draft.
You use that as your kind of base starting point.
So I am going to share a comp title, and you have to guess what it is.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
That sounds fun.
This does sound fun. All right, let's see. Let's get this started.
Okay, so the first one for you, Tristan, is Space Family Robinson.
Lost in Space? Okay. Now, is that the I got it right bell or the I'm disqualified?
Yes, you got it right.
Excellent. I like this.
Yeah, it's a nice, easy way to really get inspiration. In that case, it was used primarily as the pitch to the studios. One thing I would caution is that the comp title you use to inspire your story isn't necessarily the one you want to use for the pitch. Like, if there's something really obscure that you really like, the editor or producer might not know what it is, or they'll be worried. Even if they do know what it is, but they know it's obscure, they're going to be like, I don't know that this will sell. Plus, things change as you're writing out your story or novel. And so what the finished product might not necessarily even resemble the inspiration.
And I guess it's a little bit audacious, maybe, to say, to use those kind of super classic titles. If you love The Martian Chronicles, you're going to love, I don't know.
Yeah, you want to make sure that it doesn't come across as saying, this is the next Ray Bradbury book, which doesn't
Exactly.
necessarily help your case.
Yeah, especially when you're just starting out, that would just come across as arrogant and pretentious. But if you're already there, then they'll be like, yeah, I think so.
Yes, and if you are, in fact, Ray Bradbury, it helps.
So,
although apparently Martian Chronicles was Sherwood Anderson in space.
Interesting.
I've seen it. Yeah.
So, this one is for you, Jess. The Tempest in space.
I mean, nothing is coming to mind, but that sounds amazing.
Okay, I'll give you a hint. It's a movie that was made in the 50s.
Okay, no, I'm blanking.
It would be Forbidden Planet.
Oh, I was just thinking that. I was wondering. It's a classic.
And that's fairly audacious, comparing yourself to Shakespeare.
Yeah.
If you like Shakespeare, you're going to love this.
It served as both the inspiration and the actual pitch to the studios. So.
That's awesome.
I guess that's sort of like, so I've been working on and off on an epic poem, which is basically, I'm pitching it as Milton's Paradise Lost in space, with a bit of Shakespeare, King Henry V.
That sounds amazing.
Fourth, yeah. I just need to finish writing it. I'm about 75% of the way through, and then I keep getting interrupted.
Those cats.
Yeah, it's always the cats.
Those cats. I mean, it really is a fantastic way to, try and sort of spark some ideas. Like I'm sort of imagining, I don't know, pulling one kind of book off your bookshelf and looking at everything else, to see if you can get some interesting resonance coming from even just as a writing exercise.
Yeah, and of course it doesn't necessarily have to just be titles. You can do this with characters. For example, one of my favorite sci-fi novels, The Pride of Shannor. The main character, Captain Pionfar Shannor, is basically Princess Leia, but in Chewbacca's body, with a little bit of Han Solo mixed in too. And of course, her people, the Hani, are sort of physically and culturally a cross between lions and humans. C.J. Cherryh really did some extensive research on the behavior of lion prides and sort of worked out how that might influence a culture. So, Tristan, you're up again. Rocky versus E.T.
Rocky versus E.T.? All I can think of is Alien versus Predator, but I don't think that's right.
You're closer than you think. It's one of them.
Oh, then it has to be Alien.
Predator.
Oh.
Jess got it.
It was a process of elimination.
Sylvester Stallone, right? I think I cheated. It wasn't my turn.
Well,
oh no,
I'm still giving it to you.
Arnie, not Sylvester. What's wrong with my brain?
Well, I mean, Sylvester Stallone did inspire Predator, and it was literally built on a joke. The only person Rocky hadn't gone up against yet was E.T. And I forget the writers' names, unfortunately, but one of them was like, "Oh, that's brilliant," and they started a treatment for Predator right away.
And it was so popular. I mean, considering it's pretty cheesy
And of course, this is another example of it. The final product's not necessarily matching up, because there are strong echoes of The Most Dangerous Game in the actual final story.
Huh, interesting. Kind of reminds me of like the is it the Jungian archetypes for characters? How there's certain types of there's only like 12 different types of characters. And so you try to kind of connect the pop culture figures that best inhabit or best exhibit those behaviors, those archetypes.
That's interesting.
So, your next one, Jess.
Excellent.
Flash Gordon and the Hidden Fortress.
Gordon and the Hidden Fortress. I don't know the Hidden Fortress.
Oh.
I don't know.
Tristan?
It's not Star Wars, is it?
That's right.
It is.
Oh,
I know Star Wars took an awful lot of like samurai movies, basically copied them point by point, like plot-wise, except they were set in space with fancy lightsabers.
So yeah, George Lucas was a huge fan of Kurosawa films, and of course he grew up watching Flash Gordon serials, and so naturally that those two kind of came together. Because the plot is very heavily inspired by Hidden Fortress. Even some of the characters, I think R2-D2 and C-3PO are based on a couple of characters from that film. Of course, a lot of the visuals came from World War II movies. Like the battle against the Death Star was very heavily inspired by the Dam Busters, I believe.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. Tristan, another one for you.
Yes.
The Predator hunts burglars.
Is it like Home Alone in space?
I was thinking
No,
Home
it's
Alone
just-
as well.
I figured that was one of those Home Alones I never got to see. It was the one where he goes up to like the ISS.
I'll go ahead and give this one to you. But yeah, it is actually Home Alone. A lot of the kids' traps were inspired by the climax of Predator, where Schwarzenegger is just pulling together all of this stuff, and so that sort of inspired Home Alone. So even science fiction inspires comedy.
I can't describe just how much that pleases me that Home Alone was inspired by Predator. That's amazing.
I have learned so many new things, so many great new things today.
Okay, Jess?
We're not doing very well, Tristan.
No, we're not. I can get them when they're not me, when they're not mine. Sometimes.
So far, it's Tristan 3, Jess 1.
Oh, God.
Oh, I feel better now.
Jaws meets 2001: A Space Odyssey.
I have no idea. I know those two both very well. I can't imagine. Tristan?
So it's not, no, it's not Star Trek
Alien?
the Motion
It's
Picture.
Alien. It's got to be Alien.
You got it.
Ah, yes.
I assume getting it was Alien and not the motion picture.
Yeah, Jess got it. Okay, this one's for you. Indiana Jones, Rambo, and the Chariot of the Gods.
Not Clash of the Titans. I don't know this one. Do you have an answer, Kat? Do you know? My cat doesn't know mine.
So Indiana Jones is plundering treasure. Rambo, he's kicking butt. Chariot of the Gods, aliens on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what about something like Stargate? Oh,
You got it, Jess.
yeah.
So the hint I was going to give would have been ancient Egyptian mythology.
Aha. Oh, that would have made sense. Aha. Yes.
Okay, so we're 3-3. Tristan?
Yes.
Star Wars
Yes.
meets Lord of the Rings.
It's epic, whatever it is.
I'm blanking on the name of the movie, although I can think of it. I can't think of the name.
Now, it was a series of novels first.
Oh, no, it's I know exactly what it is, and I just can't think of the name.
Lord of the Rings in space, basically.
I think the other way around.
Star Wars in the Shire.
Willow.
Ah,
No.
Well, that's as good as I got.
that was a good guess.
Willow is a great movie.
So the author wrote it when he was 15.
Oh, what's his name? Paulini. What the heck is the name of his book? I've even read it, and it's really famous, and I'm completely blanking on it.
Who is the author?
Christopher Paolini?
Oh, Aragon.
Took a while.
Thanks for putting me out of my misery there.
I think we both get half a point on that one.
Okay, Jess. Wagon Train to the Stars.
Oh, I know this one. Star Wars, Star Trek.
Fun fact, something that's sort of been lost over time is the fact that Wagon Train was the name of a TV series that was really popular at the time. And so basically, that pitch is, you see this really successful TV show, it'll be just like that, but in space.
I think that is the secret to selling anything. You take any classic work and you put it in space, and it's like an instant hit. Like War and Peace in space would be a great classic. Dostoevsky's The Idiot set in space, again, perfect seller.
Crime and Punishment in space.
I think we're generating all these great ideas. We'll have to. I want to see all these short
regulating
stories
in space. Okay, Tristan. Flash Gordon meets the Dark Crystal. Well, this is going to be a little tough.
Oh. I've been wanting to say Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time for like the past, since we started. It has nothing to do with anything. I just want to say Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time.
No, it's definitely not that.
The Dark Crystal, it's that sort of slightly fey.
So that's the one with the weird puppets, like the puppeteering, if I'm correct.
Mm-hmm.
It's really nicely done.
Yep. And by the way, that's a big clue. It is. The story was produced largely by Jim Henson Studios.
Oh.
Flash Gordon.
I know this one, and is this like a television show?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, is it like, it's not like JAG or like Space Force or something like that. I know, I can picture it perfectly. And I never watched it, so I can't think of the name.
Is that Jim Henson?
Any guesses, Jess?
No.
Space Corps? No. Police Academy? No, that's not. I think I see this.
Space would be good.
Okay, so since this one has you both stumped, it's Farscape.
Farscape? Oh!
So I have one more tiebreaker.
All right. I don't know if it's a tie at this point, but yes, I'm pretty sure I'm losing.
It's 4-4.
Okay. Oh, nice.
So, Foundation meets Flash Gordon.
Flash Gordon is in a lot of these.
He is.
Yeah. And this is sort of my pitch for it. So it's not necessarily what inspired it, but
Expanse.
Nope, not the Expanse.
Oh. Movie or
I
television
mean,
show?
Flash Gordon just represents the in space part, right?
Sort of, but there's also the
The
action
dashing
adventure
hero.
space opera.
Yeah. Dune?
Nope.
Oh, that's a good one.
So it is a TV series. Not a
If
great
I
one.
if I say Dune again, will it be right the second time?
Nope.
Oh.
Uh, hmm. I feel like we need to get this one.
Yeah.
Another
Good
hint.
thinking.
Gene Roddenberry's name is in this.
Star Trek, The Undiscovered Country.
Nope. It's not a TV series. That's a movie.
Well, yes, that is a slight disability to the answer there.
Could be described as Captain Hercules.
Is it Andromeda?
Good guess.
That was an interesting show that got really, really weird at the end.
And really, really all about Kevin Sorbo's ego.
You got that one,
Um,
Tristan?
Yep.
Sorry, what was that?
You got that one.
I think I did. Yes.
Yep. Tristan is the winner.
Congratulations.
Do I get like a prize?
Bragging rights.
Oh, okay. All right.
Excellent.
I was hoping I'd get like a little trophy, a little golden trophy that I could hang on the wall. So to sum up, what makes a really good? What should you have in a comp title, and what should you try to avoid?
There isn't much when you're just trying to figure out what your story is going to be about. But when you're trying to pitch your idea to a studio or a magazine or a publishing company, try to avoid things that are too obscure or things that notoriously bad. Like you don't want to do Plan 9 from Outer Space meets Predator.
Depends on what you're trying to pitch.
I want that. But
So,
conversely, I've heard you shouldn't use anything that's too popular, like Harry Potter in space, because it makes certain presumptions.
To a degree, but when the thing to understand about most magazines and studios especially is, are they going to make money off of this? And because, I mean, it is, when they agree to produce it, they are putting an investment into that project. And if it doesn't pay off, if they don't think that it's likely to pay off, then they're not going to do it. So even if the person knows, for example, Sequest DSV, now that show kind of, it had a really strong start. There was a lot of buzz around it when it started, but it fizzled out and is now one of the most obscure TV series in history. And it's
Oh my goodness.
it has the star of Jaws, Roy Scheider, in it.
It has Ted Raimi in it, Sam Raimi's brother.
My little sister was obsessed with that show, so it's not obscure in my house.
Yeah.
That one's Flipper in space, isn't it?
More like Star Trek Underwater.
True.
And that's probably how it was pitched, too.
That's pretty cool, really.
Yeah.
It makes me want to watch Sequence DSV again.
Well, it is available on Peacock. We are not affiliated. Although if they want to sponsor us, that'll be great.
So when is the ideal time to start working on your comp title? Should you do it before you start writing, after you've started writing, during writing, or does it really matter? Do you want to like keep reinventing it as you go along?
I'd say it's dependent. Like if you're really struggling just to come up with ideas, then probably before you start writing, so that you sort of give yourself a direction to go in. But otherwise, it can just... Obviously, the one that you're going to try to sell your story with, that should probably come after you've finished.
I can imagine as someone who leans in kind of the pantsing direction, even just having a comp as a starting point could be a really good way to kind of keep yourself on track, to sort of help keep the focus or the focus while you're writing something. I guess you'd want to be careful you didn't sort of lean on them too heavily for direction, but just in terms of kind of sparking kind of forward motion, you'd be like, oh yeah, Rocky versus ET. I gotta stay on this kind of general path.
Yeah. And of course, if you stray even slightly too closely, of course, fans will say that you're just ripping off this thing, and it's like, Aragon certainly got a lot of criticism as a ripoff of Star Wars, which I find hilarious because of how closely, especially the first film, mirrors Akira Kurosawa's Hidden Fortress. So, if you think Aragon stayed too close to Star Wars, then Star Wars stayed way too close to its inspirations.
And that does go back to the idea that there's only so many different kinds of stories that you can have. Like this, I forget whatever. There's the book, The Hero's Journey, which dictates the number of stories, and it's kind of limited. And so you start having these ideas that repeat. So you have the adventure story that is the Hidden Fortress, and then there's offshoots of it, but it's kind of they parallel, and that parallel is kind of inevitable.
Well, I mean, there are certain patterns. I'm honestly kind of anti Joseph Campbell on this. I mean, there are patterns, but that doesn't mean that you have to follow it.
Mm-hmm. You want to find ways to have a unique spin on it, make it different. Yeah. All right. Do we have any closing remarks we want to make?
Well, I was just thinking about something that you said before about how they're, looking at how many story ideas are there really. And maybe that's another aspect where doing these composite titles can be really useful in that you can put a twist with a change in the tone, that something with more of a comedic element or more of an epic kind of feel can completely change, the original. And so, yeah, what I think is really interesting is that space in between them and all of the changes and comparisons and similarities between the two, which are really fun to play with. And maybe that's why it works so well.
Yeah, using that example, Home Alone, it takes a really serious, dramatic scene from Predator and makes a lighthearted movie about a kid trying to outwit a bunch of thieves who break into his house.
But they were able to kind of identify that most satisfying element from Predator and keep that kind of the bit that made it so good and transplant it. So that's really cool.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jonathan and Jess, for coming out and doing this podcast.
That's all right. Thanks for the invite, Tristan.
All right. And take care, everyone.
Take care.
See you later.
You've been listening to Utopia Science Fiction, the podcast. If you like what you heard and want to hear more of our podcast, please visit our website at www.utopiasciencefiction.com. There you can find more podcasts, as well as our archives, and all of the issues readily available. Dive into a world of untold wonder with Utopia Science Fiction, the magazine. If you'd like to support us and help us to continue to produce podcasts and deliver great content in stories, and poems, as well as display beautiful artwork, please consider supporting us by joining our Patreon. Just follow the link below, and by joining our Patreon, you too can have access to exclusive content, interviews with patrons, behind the scenes, occasional podcast blooper reels, and so much more, all while giving a small contribution that makes a big difference. Thank you for listening. And now, I'll close with our usual refrain. Dear listener, let us go now boldly, boldly onward, ever onward, onward, through the impossible.